This indeed is the first ever housing forum organized in this continent by Habitat for Humanity. And of course, we are delighted that we are doing so in conjunction with our partners that include the many that have been shown there, but with my brother and our brother institution or sister institution, the UN Habitat. As you've seen, the theme for this particular conversation, fostering inclusivity and resilience in housing in Africa, highlights the urgent call for sustainable and innovative solutions through an inclusive approach to bring us all closer to a world where everyone, but especially people from vulnerable and marginalized groups, have access to affordable, decent homes. Habitat for Humanity works in more than 70 countries around the world to help remove the barriers that stand between people and a decent place to call home. In doing so, we partner with individuals, families, governments, private sector, and other civil society organizations on solutions that make adequate housing accessible and affordable for all. So this may be the first forum that Habitat is organizing, but Habitat for Humanity has been working for many years with partners in Africa. For example, in this year, 2022, we celebrate our 40th anniversary in Kenya and Uganda, respectively. And we work across regions in Africa to help increase affordable housing options for safe, decent, resilient, and climate-smart homes. In doing so, we use legal frameworks that promote access to affordable and decent housing, such as the new urban agenda, the SDGs, and the Agenda 2063 of the African Union. And so you may ask, why this forum? And why now? The statistics, dear colleagues, are staggering. The housing deficit in Africa is disproportionately large and growing. Some 238 million people live in informal settlements. 238 million people, with very little access to basic services such as water and sanitation. It can no longer be somebody else's responsibility. We, you and I, as individuals and institutions, no longer have the luxury to be standers by. We urgently need to solve these problems because, and Uma will speak, the UN Habitat has told us and has projected that by 2030, 50% of sub-Saharan African population will be living in cities and towns.
You all know the context we are today, in Africa and globally speaking, with the COVID-19, which has brought a lot of inequalities in our world. But also we see the change in political pattern, which means that Africa needs to have now its own way of looking into our problem, especially in the issue of housing. Today, if you talk about building back better, and to build a resilient, safe, and inclusive cities, we need to look at closely this issue of housing as a vector of economic growth, but also of reducing inequalities. And I think Maurice has talked about those people living in the slums. 65% of urban population in Africa live in slums without water, sanitation, decent housing, and exposed to all vulnerability of climate change. We all know that the continent is facing rapid urbanization and population growth. And Africa's cities are facing persistent challenges to meet the housing need of their population. And Maurice has mentioned it, this rapid trend. We are expecting that 1.4 billion people to live in cities by 2015, which is more than 80% of this increase will happen in cities. Evidence shows that less than 15% of African urban population can afford to purchase housing available on the market. For example, in Kenya, where we are, 80% of urban households can afford the cheapest newly built house by private developers. And about 97 to 99% of people in sub-Saharan Africa do not have access to formal financing that will enable home construction or improvement. African countries suffer from growing housing deficit if not addressed, might contribute further to the increase in slums and other connected challenges, overcrowded, limited access to water, sanitation, to name that few. In fact, with limited affordable housing alternative, most of housing is produced outside of the formal housing market, typically in slums and informal settlements. Preventing the growth of slums by providing adequate and affordable housing at scale is necessary for the sustainable and inclusive urban development of African cities. The lack of appropriate planning mechanism and regulation, including the spatial distribution and investment in services and infrastructure, often result in more urban inequalities. If housing construction is not coupled with sound urban planning, there is a risk of further proliferation of buildings that are built or subserviced land with lack of tenure security and proper integration in the urban infrastructure. Many environmental risks are also associated with the poor quality of housing structure and its location, hitting marginalized people the hardest, especially in the context of climate vulnerability. Access to land and finance, as mentioned by Maurice, are the primary constraint in affordable housing provision in Africa. While several African countries are making tangible effort to address the demand for land for various purposes and needs, in other countries, urban land supply for housing is insufficient, poorly managed, and regulated. At the same time, conventional housing finance in Africa is underdeveloped. While microfinance and community-based saving groups are providing alternative housing finance, they remain constrained by unsupportive institutional and regulatory framework. Also, public housing programs do not exist. Where they exist, they cannot produce affordable housing and or are insufficient in scale relative to demand. Globally, and particularly in the African context, the sustainable growth of the affordable housing sector could represent not only an opportunity to provide access to adequate housing to those in need, but also a central element of microeconomic policy for each country's economic growth and development. Housing and the building sectors account for a significant proportion of the national economy and constitute a key component of development. The construction sector in Africa accounts for around 1/3 of net employment gain, and there is potential to do more. The economic benefit of increased access to adequate and affordable housing include greater tax generation, creation of jobs, opportunity for economic development and productivity. Consequently, housing is a vector for socio-economic inclusion and should be placed at the center of development initiatives.
We've had an opportunity to serve close to 40 million people in the 40 years that we've been in existence. But there's a challenge. We have this twin problem of affordability and the housing deficit that both Maurice and Umar talked about. In the United States, we work in all 50 states, and we have significant challenges when it comes to affordability. And these challenges aren't going to go away. But if that isn't bad enough, think about the challenges that we have across the globe. 1.8 billion people, according to UN Habitat, lack decent and affordable housing. That's a challenge. That's a gigantic challenge that we need to collectively overcome. Hence the reason you would appreciate why this forum is important, because in Africa, like we just heard, 238 million people live in informal settlements. But we cannot be overwhelmed by numbers or the challenges that we face. We need to talk about our relevance, and that's why this forum is important for us. According to the World Bank, Africa will have 1.2 billion urban residents by 2050 and 4.5 million new residents in informal settlements each year. That's a reality. Numbers don't lie. Again, let me state the obvious here. We have a daunting challenge, both in Africa and across the globe. And as an affordable housing agency, we've been asking critical questions about our own relevance. How are we responding to the challenges as it pertains to both housing and shelter? We developed a program theory of change not too long ago. And there were three critical questions we asked, and the theory of change informed the responses as far as the three questions are concerned. The first one is, why is there a deficit? That's a reality, but why does it exist? My colleague, Maurice Makalou, our Area Vice President for Africa, touched on some of the salient points. Systemic inequity is a reality. It exists. In Africa, it exists across the globe. It shouldn't come as a surprise that in many parts of the world, including in Africa, women and men don't enjoy the same rights. And that continues to be a driver when it comes to the housing deficit. There are other marginalized groups who continue to have significant challenges accessing housing and shelter. Maurice talked about a couple of groups, including people with disabilities. People have similar problems when it comes to the identity. That's also contributing to the housing deficit. And then Habitat had to ask this question, what's our expertise? In fact, do we have all the expertise that we need to address some of these significant challenges? And the answer is no, we don't have all the expertise. And that's why this forum is important. That's why the organizations and the institutions that you represent play a big role in working with us to co-create some of the solutions. So how would we respond was another critical question. And I just want to focus on Africa for a moment. We made it tangible in Africa by developing a strategy under Maurice's leadership. The strategy we developed is actually predicated on impact and the pursuit of impact. In fact, several workshops or the breakout sessions we plan to have over the next couple of days would address some of the challenges, but also as to how Habitat for Humanity would address some of these challenges based on our pursuit of impact. It's also defined by context. Just look at the diversity in this room here. When we talk about a continent, we also talk about the diversity of this continent. And it's important for us to appreciate the fact that we cannot take a one-size-fits-all approach. We've tried it in the past, and that's not going to work. So your context, being defined by context, is fundamental. But it's also driven by multiple modes of engagement as well. One of the things that we plan to do is that we will continue to implement programs. That's important. But that's not good enough. Like I said, we can't solve all the problems on our own. We would also act as a technical advisor and a convener. The 1.8 billion people, they're not statistics. They're people like you and me. And they actually depend on us to be a voice. And that's why courage is important. So when we talk about policy, when we talk about advocacy, it's not just theory. It's the reality of hope that we can present as far as the 1.8 billion people are concerned, or the 238 million people living in informal settlements in Africa are concerned. And accountability is what we're trying to harness here. We love the fact that we can work with governments. Governments have a duty to also fulfill a responsibility. We are not here to replace government. To the contrary, we are here to complement a government's efforts in a particular national context, supplemented by other agencies, including the United Nations or other civil society agencies. So that accountability has to be defined. The SDGs, the call to action, the new urban agenda, these are all mechanisms that help us, but it shouldn't stop right there.